Hello, everybody, and welcome to KETIV Virtual Academy. My name is Tyler Hart. I'm with the marketing team involved in running these weekly training and thought leadership sessions. And today's topic is Mastering Inventor Workflows, Unleashing Vault Integration and iLogic Automation. Your expert for today is Thomas Fitzgerald, recently promoted to Senior Technical Solutions Executive here at KETIV, and a regular contributor of great value to this series. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to submit them via the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to address them during the session if it's appropriate or at the end. Also, all of these are recorded and available for distribution on ketiv.com or on our YouTube channel. So look out for that recording and delve into some of the other great content we have. Tom, if you hit the next slide here, I'd also like to tease an upcoming series of in-person events coming to a city near you. Our Traveling Manufacturing Innovation Workshop will bring together manufacturing leaders like you to connect with each other and reflect on recent developments in technology, workforce management, customer experience, you name it. Keep an eye out for that. We're really excited to meet with people in person around the country, and we'll be sending out more information. If you want information right now, feel free to say so in the chat, and we will definitely reach out to you. So without further ado, I will pass things over to Tom to kick us off. Thanks so much for being here.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's KVA. Hopefully, you guys know me by now. Senior Technical Solutions Executive, as Tyler indicated. This is a new role for me here at KETIV. I've been here at KETIV for 2 years previously, working at Autodesk, doing a number of things around automation, data management, Inventor, working with manufacturing companies using the Autodesk tool. So been working within 3D design for over 25 years, numerous CAD platforms, very familiar with 3D design, really relative to the manufacturing industry. So been participating in one capacity or another within manufacturing, either as a consultant or as an engineer or something else for over 30 years now. So also a U.S. Army veteran, and in my free time, I like to study World War II history. So enough about me, let's get into the good stuff. So what we want to talk about today is a little bit around Inventor and Vault. And I know that a lot of our KVAs are really kind of focused towards one or the other. So I really want to kind of marry them together and just give you a little bit of insight around some of the things relative to Inventor and Vault, very specific to iLogic, and kind of bleeds over into general automation. But really the topic of today is going to be Inventor, iLogic, and some of the things around Vault. So the three things that we're going to talk about in this relatively short KVA today is Inventor and Vault. Why do they work so well together? Some data management elements around, what can we do with copy design versus building out a configurator? And then how do we manage our rules, both internal and external iLogic rules? So with that being said, I've got a poll here. I'd like to present to everybody to understand a little bit more around, are you using Inventor? Are you using Inventor with Vault? Or are you just not quite there yet? And be interested in understanding where the audience might be today. So if you haven't already, go ahead and select your choice. All right. So most of you are using Inventor and Vault. Very good. Good to know. Those of you that aren't using either, I hope you get some value out of this. And those of you that are solely using Inventor, let's see if we can educate you a little bit more around what Vault can do as well. The next poll here, I want to understand who all out there is currently using some iLogic. So you're currently using any iLogic? Are you interested in iLogic? Do you even know what iLogic might be? Like to understand, of the audience, who knows what it is and who's currently using? Holy cow, a split of 50-50. Don't see that very often. Good. Those of you that are using iLogic, if you need any assistance, if you're looking to upskill or refine or optimize your iLogic code, please don't hesitate to reach out. Those of you that aren't using iLogic, once again, if you want to know a little bit more, don't hesitate to reach out as well. There's a lot of stuff that we can do here at KETIV to support your needs and requirements. All right. Thank you, everyone, for the poll. Very interesting and good knowledge to have. So, Inventor and Vault. Inventor has been around for what, 23 years now, 24 years almost. So, being able to use Inventor, those of you that are using Inventor understand that as we create a lot of files, we also create a lot of file relationships, right? And maintaining those relationships and working well together in terms of how to manage those relationships, that's really where Vault does a lot of its heavy lifting relative to Inventor, right? The ability of being able to rename files, move files around, and then allowing another system to manage those associations. Have any of you ever gone through if you're not using Vault, you're working inside of Inventor, you rename a file or you move it around, and what does Inventor inherently do? It wants you to resolve that association, that link, right? So, implementing Vault can really assist in that capability. As well as, inside of Vault, there's a lot of capability around being able to find the information you need. You don't have to rely on your memory. You don't have to rely on other people's memories. Having that visibility of where something might be used so we can understand the impact of any changes that might be there, as well as what does an assembly use? What comprises that assembly? So that way we can also understand if we want to copy anything or if we want to change anything, we have that perspective of what that impact might be. As well as, if you're working inside of Inventor and you have Vault connected, just being able to, when you're going through your normal operations, Inventor and Vault will communicate with one another and prompt you as to some of the things that you should be doing, or maybe in some cases, some of the things you shouldn't be doing. So let's just step over to Inventor for a second here, just so we can kind of visualize what this all looks like. So if you aren't using Vault right now, your UI is going to look a little bit different. So once you install Inventor and then you install Vault afterwards, the Vault client, you're going to see this tab up here called Vault, in which you can do Vault activities right here inside the context of Inventor. You don't have to swap back and forth to two different applications to do what you need to do. You can do open from Vault. You can check in. You can update the properties. You can find duplicates. In your model browser, you have this Vault browser here as well that kind of gives you some feedback of what's actually going on. I can understand who's got something checked out, if I have something checked out, if somebody else has something checked out. And I can get some other information as to what category it might exist in, what is its file name, things along those lines. So I have a lot of capability just simply from right-clicking and within my browser to do things around Vault. Once again, a lot of the same functions that you're going to see up here on the toolbar. Also, if I want to access Vault, there's a button right here. All I have to do is push that button, takes me over to Vault, and now I'm within the Vault environment to do my activity. So as you can see, they're paired well with one another in terms of engineering process and workflow of being able to access information that you need for your Inventor designs, as well as securing and controlling that information as well. A couple of things that I had talked about previously, being able to find information. We have a way of just typing in if we want to find something up here. We can just do a search. We also have the find tool here that allows us to do basic designs or basic searches or advanced searches based upon different properties and different conditions. So being able to find the information you need when you need it is sometimes the biggest difference in terms of those engineering departments that are efficient and those that may not be so efficient. So keep that in mind. Going back over to our presentation here. Oh, let me actually get the right one. So being able to find, let's go back to Vault here. I want to show you one other thing in terms of uses and where used. I feel like sometimes this is a feature inside of Vault that doesn't get as much attention in it as it should. So if I'm in an assembly here and I can find out what everything is included inside of this assembly, what is it comprised of? What are all its individual sub-assemblies, its individual components? And then from here, I can also go to that component. I can open that file. I can go to the folder where it's existing. So it allows me a lot of navigation tools, gives me a lot of navigation tools, once again, to find the information I need when I need it. And there's also some other capabilities inside of Vault that ensures that even though we do find the information rapidly, how do we ensure it's accurate? How do we ensure that maybe it's not a duplicate? Well, like I said, there's tools inside of Vault that can minimize redundancy and remove any duplication. So once again, you find what you need when you need it, and you have high confidence that it's the information that you absolutely need. All right. Let's go back over here to our presentation. Also, as you're checking in and checking out or trying to access information inside of Inventor, that last bullet point, Inventor will prompt you. If you're trying to access a file or open up assembly and a component doesn't exist, Vault will prompt you to let you know, hey, do you want to check this out? Do you want to get this file local so that way you can resolve all your links? All right. So one of the next things I want to talk about here is around data management. And when I say data management, yeah, okay, a lot of people will say, well, you're talking about Vault. And really, in this instance, I want to talk about, the true version of data managing data. Not necessarily using a system to do that, but what is your policy? What is your procedure? What are your requirements and needs around managing your data? Maybe you're just using Windows Explorer to do that. What are your security policies? What is your folder architecture? How do you control redundancy and duplication? So it's all about the policy of managing your data. So from a design perspective, and then an Autodesk tool set perspective, really there's two basic fundamental ways of being able to manage data. And in this case, it's about creating new data or leveraging existing data, okay? So inside of Vault, we can do a copy design. There's a functionality inside of Vault where if I would go to, say, an assembly, and I right click, and there's also a button up on the toolbar where I want to say, I want to copy this design. And I'm presented with a user interface, a dialog box, if you will, here, that allows me to understand what components, what information exists within my current design that I want to copy. And then I get functionality to be able to copy it. So if I want to make a change to it, if that information changes, be it the file name, be it some property information, be it geometry, be it its material, whatever the case might be, you don't want it to be you don't want to manipulate one that's already existing that's going to impact some other design. So you want to copy that. Or maybe this doesn't exist, or it's not even involved in the new design whatsoever. So maybe you want to exclude it. Or if it's not going to change whatsoever, perhaps it's a vendor component or a purchase part or some sort of information that you don't have design control over. Maybe you're just going to want to reuse that information. So you have a number of different features to be able to dictate the design, the finished design, what you're copying to, what you want to ultimately consume. Okay, but within this interface, as handy as it might be, sometimes it's a little bit challenging. It's not as user friendly over the years. It's made some incredible improvements. I hand it to the Vault team, the user experience team, to make the changes as necessary. But regardless, all this information that you're copying exists inside the context of Vault. Once you've gone through that copy process, then you have to check that information out, open it up within Inventor, and then make your changes. So that's one way of approaching how to manage data from a copy or a save copy as or a new project perspective. The other way, of course, is by using a configurator. So it's similar approach, just in the reverse order, if you will. So Vault copy design allows us to copy information inside of the Vault and then bring it down and make our changes. Using a configurator goes the other way, where we use the graphical information, we use the property information, we use the parameter information to make changes to whatever our product line might be. And then once we're satisfied with that configuration, if we want to make any kind of changes, like perhaps I just want to change to a different size here, and it's going to run through that process of updating my design. And as you can see, there's prompts there, communicating with Vault. I didn't have all the files I needed to fulfill the configuration. So because I was logged into Vault, Vault prompted me, yes, I want to grab that information. It brought it down local for me. So now Inventor can function properly and as we would expect. So now I have the configuration that I need. And then I can go through this process of generating this out. So using it configured in this fashion, essentially we're using source files, seed files, templates. Some people might call them templates. Information that is our foundation for our configurator. And we use logic to update and exclude or include or change or even update geometry if we want to. We go through that exercise of using logic to come and arrive at a particular configuration. And then from there, we basically commit to that design by saving everything out. If it's information that has changed, we definitely want to copy that. We also want to adhere to our data management policies around what are we going to name it? What is our file naming convention? And of course, where do we want to locate it? How do we adhere to that folder structure and architecture that makes sense for everybody else within the company that might need to consume that information? So once we arrive at a configuration, then we want to commit that configuration by saving out that information that is being copied, and then reusing information that is, once again, vendor provided or static information, purchase parts. And then lastly, what are we including and excluding? What within the design is either new, that wasn't there in the previous design, or what do we want to remove because of the configuration requirements? Regardless of what the case might be, the approach here is this approach is strictly inside of Inventor, right? We build out our Inventor models, we build out the logic, we understand when we start pushing buttons, we're building out a configuration, and I'm going to say no to this. And then once this is completed, this is going to create a whole new design for me that I will then be able to, let me turn off these prompts. Yes to all. All right. And then I'll be able to arrive at this configuration. And then once it's completed here through this process, then we're going to be able to open that up. And then we're going to see an entirely new design. And then from there, I'll be able to kind of share with you what that looks like from a vaulted perspective. I mean, what do we need to do that now that we've arrived at this configuration? What can I do? Well, similarly, because now this is new information that perhaps wasn't existing before, the iLogic code that I was using created new file names, saved out information in new locations. So I have a whole new assembly here that now I can go and check into the Vault. So I can go to my Vault tab here. If I save this, then I can go through the process of being able to check this information in. Well, it's supposed to allow me to check it in. Let me go and hit refresh here. That's a little bizarre. Don't we all love live demonstrations? Okay. Well, this is supposed to allow me to check this into the Vault so that way we can see it here inside of the Vault as it's being generated. We'll take a look at why that's not functioning exactly the way it should be. However, once we have that configuration defined here, now we'll be able to see it inside of this generated files folder. We have all the information that was changed in terms of the individual components and the individual subassemblies. And then now I can use Vault to give me that perspective of everything that I need to understand in terms of where something might be used, how it might be used, or what assembly uses subcomponents, as well as the history. So a lot of the general Vault functionality. So going back over here to my PowerPoint, managing the data, how do we want to copy? Sometimes it's easier for people to pull or use the copy design tool within Vault in order to generate that information. One of the things that I found by using that is you're totally dependent upon using those thumbnails inside of the Vault. So you can't pan, zoom, rotate, and you don't see those components in the context of the broader assembly. So it's a little bit more challenging to understand what you want to include, what you want to exclude, what do you want to copy, what do you want to reuse sometimes. Whereas working within a configurator, you can utilize any logic that you create while working with those models. So you can pan, zoom, rotate, you can pull things apart, you can dissect them, you can drill down into them to understand their properties and their parameters. So it gives you a little bit more visibility in my perspective. It gives you a little bit more visibility as to how do you want to arrive at a particular configuration. Okay, so two different approaches, both using Vault, both using Inventor, one using iLogic or some other automation service in order to provide that. Now, why am I bringing this up? Why is this of any importance? And I've shown this this diagram before. When working with automation, particularly, we have a series of elements that we need to be cognizant of in terms of the processing engine, be it Inventor, the UI. How do we allow users to interact and interface with the engine and the solution? What external information do we need to rely upon? Is this an ERP system? Is this Vault? Is this an external data source like an Excel spreadsheet or some other database? And then, of course, we have the models. We have to be concerned about the 3D models and drawings that we're going to be consuming. But you also see on the back side here in these black boxes here is, because Inventor and Vault pair so well together, we want to understand how can we loop Vault into that entire process, and kind of demonstrated that a little bit today by activating that particular configuration. Inventor was looking for that information within the library. It couldn't find it in the library. So it talked to Vault to say, okay, do you have these files? In which case it did. So Vault put it into the library where I was able to then consume it with the processing engine. So they all work together. It's all part of the master plan and the master mechanism of being able to efficiently work with your data while even using automation. Okay, once again, another diagram that kind of illustrates this a little bit more clearly. When we're working with our manufacturing company specifically, there's basically three silos that we focus on here at KETIV. The sales side, where we're doing estimation and quotings and RFQs and things like that. We have engineering, where we're doing a lot of design and drafting and all the information that is necessary to ultimately provide to the third silo, which is manufacturing. So how do we input information on one end and make sure that it maintains that consistency and that integrity? Well, that's a digital pipeline, right? So you'll see that Vault, spans across all three of these silos. So it's very important. It's the underpinning. It's the foundation of a successful, business in terms of engineering data for your IP. But one tier down, you'll see, Inventor design automation and that information that is necessary to convey that design, they tie right together with Vault. So using automation, using Inventor, using Vault, all three of them together, I mean, it's definitive in terms of its foundation within engineering and design and success for manufacturing, quite honestly. So the last thing that I want to talk about here is iLogic rule management. Now, we're all very familiar that when you want to produce iLogic code, you're going to do it one of two ways, essentially. You're going to build out internal iLogic rules that reside within the files themselves. So very transportable. If you want to give somebody the code, you just give somebody the file, and now they have the code. Most of the time, in most instances, depending on how that code is architected, that code is very specific for the file that it exists in or any sub-files that may be associated to it. So meaning if you have internal rules within the context of an assembly, that code can impact those sub-components as well. But for the most part, consider internal rules as they're inside of the file. The file Wherever the file goes, that's where the logic goes. But one of the things that I really want to point out in terms of internal rules is you can create a rule to delete rules. Meaning, if we look back at what we were doing previously in terms of developing a configurator, if I go over to Inventor here, one of the rules that I have within this configurator is a way to be able to delete rules. So inside of my generate files logic here, if I go all the way down to the bottom, I have a routine here that goes through, and once a file is saved, if I can find it, I should have had this teed up. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, right here. So we go through and we delete the forms and we clear all the iLogic rules. So there's ways to be able to use iLogic, through using the Inventor API to then go and open up a file, understand what rules exist, clear out those rules, save the file, and basically purge rules from a file. So even though you may be utilizing a methodology of developing a configurator for your data management to create new information, and you're using internal rules, doesn't mean that you're necessarily pigeonholed and you have all sorts of code floating out there. There's other methods you can use in order to purge those rules and clear out that information as necessary. Wrong one. All right. And then you have external rules. Now, internal rules are very file, they operate at a file level, where external rules are at an application level. So we point to external rules. They can reside locally on your machine if you want them to. Most of the time, we recommend that you have them out on a network drive. Well, why do we want to do that? Well, because of security, right? You want to be able to secure that information. If the logic is so important and it's representative of your business process in terms of engineering, how things go together, which is ultimately your IP and how you make money, you want to preserve that as much as you possibly can. And by doing that, you want to secure that either by using a network drive and limiting the amount of individuals that can access that information or make changes. But one of the other things that you can do is, because those files exist outside of the file and they're at the application level, you can also store those rules inside of Vault, right? So if I had some external rules here, which I do, of course I do. One of the things that I can do, let me shrink this up just a little bit. One of the things that I can do, if I go to here, I have my external rules, iLogic rules. I have this one rule right here. So if this was out on a network drive and I wanted to preserve this inside of the Vault, all I'd have to do is create some sort of location inside of the Vault to store my external rules. So I have an empty folder here, and all I have to do is just drag it and then drop it in there. If I do it correctly, drag that and then just drop that right into external rules there. And then I'm going to get this dialog box. It says, okay, I'm going to upload this. Do I want to keep that file checked out? Nope, you don't. And do I want to delete the working copy? Well, not really either, right? Because if they're inside of the Vault, Inventor can't access them to then run them. They have to be outside of the Vault in order for Inventor to access them and then be able to utilize that logic. So we got to make sure that we're not deleting the working copies. However, if we do that, I can show you what you can do about bringing that back. So if you have a dedicated location for your external rules, and in this case, I have a dedicated location on my machine. But if you'd noticed, it's not underneath my project file. It's actually parallel, or actually it's above my project file. So if I would go and check out this file, it is going to go to potentially a location I don't want it to go to, okay? But what I can do is, if I undo that checkout real quick here, one of the things that I can do is, if I right click, maybe the location or the folder structure that I have inside of the Vault doesn't parallel my network drive. That's not an issue whatsoever. As opposed to doing a checkout, if you want to do a get, if you want to get that file, you have the opportunity, if I expand that open, I can say, where do I want this to go? Meaning, do I want it to go to my working folders? Don't want to check it out at all. I don't want to get that local copy at all. Or I can do this browse. And then I can specifically tell Vault where I want that file delivered to. So if I go to this location and then I point to my external iLogic rules and I select that folder. So now that's where that's going to go. So why am I pointing this out? What's the value in this? All I'm saying, guys, is if you use external rules and you use a network drive, most likely that network drive isn't mapped to your folder architecture inside of the Vault. But that doesn't mean you can't secure your external rules inside of the Vault to preserve them in case something happens, your server goes down, somebody tinkers with your code and screws everything up. No problem, just blow it away, get the latest version outside of the Vault, and you're back in business. So that's really what I wanted to touch on, everybody, today. So let me go back over here to my PowerPoint. So internal rules, keep them inside of the files. If you use a configurator, or even if you're using copy design and you copy those files over and those rules are being transported with those files, you can create other logic to strip away or purge those rules. So that way you don't have redundant code out there. And if you're using external rules, go ahead and use Vault with it too. It's a great way to save your information. So in summary, as I pointed out, data management, believe it or not, is the foundation for success. It ties together so many different elements of what we're responsible for doing within engineering. Do not devalue training and mentoring. I've seen too many people struggle out there simply because they didn't want to spend a couple $1,000s here to get some professional training or do a lunch and learn, or even just attending these KVAs and getting the value out of sharing the knowledge that we here at KETIV can produce for you guys. Inventor and Vault, peanut butter and jelly, man, they work together very well, very well. So, you know, those of you that are using Inventor, you're not using Vault, please, please, please reach out to us. We can, you know, give you a value proposition. We can analyze your environment. We can give you the best recommendations. So that way you're not struggling. You're not having to contend with obstacles and challenges unnecessarily that are going to impact, you know, your profitability. So please reach out and we can help you out in that way. And then of course, rule management. How are you using iLogic? How are you using your rules? How are you managing that information? And how are you securing that information? So rule organization and rule security can make all the difference in your world. All right. With that being said, if anybody has any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Email address and phone number on the screen right here. You can reach out to me personally. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to our website. There's many different ways of being able to connect with us here at KETIV. So I thank you for your time. Tyler, anything from you, sir?
We did have one question come through for you, Tom, and it was in relation to the difference between Vault and Upchain. Does Inventor work well with Upchain, or is it only a Vault thing? What's the difference there?
So Inventor does work with Upchain. Upchain is more of more classified as a PLM as opposed to a PDM. PDM, you know, really is around managing data and files and things like that, where a PLM, you know, you can use that outside of engineering, a lot more other areas within your business in order to understand the life cycle of your products and your information relative to that. So Upchain does work with Inventor for sure. And I believe it works with other CAD platforms as well. So it's not solely for Autodesk products.
Spectacular. Thank you so much for your time today, Tom. I will look forward to having you back. And thanks again for giving us such great content.
Yep. Thank you very much. See everybody later on the next one.